As we near the final shape and more Guardians are completing the Pantheon to get their sweaty little mitts on the elusive and rare raid exotics, I wanted to showcase a build using a particular slept on one, but one that which when built into can be absolutely devastating and can dish out some immense damage not only to trash adds but also in terms of endgame boss DPS. We're talking about the Touch of Malice, and this build video is going to put this exotic through its paces in a Strand subclass setup that has some excellent synergy and is hands down going to stand up against the test of time into the final shape and beyond. Now this one does all start with the Touch of Malice because this thing, like I say, is absolutely slept on. It is realistically one of the best exotic primaries in the game, and to be fair, it is one of my favourites as well, to be honest. Now this thing has an absolute ton going for it, and if you haven't gotten this already, then it comes from the King's Fall raid, or you can even get it from the exotic reward from the Pantheon playlist. It is one that you really should be hunting down. The main thing about this exotic is just the immense damage output that it can do. It is an exotic scout rifle and it only comes with a measly 11 rounds in the magazine, which may not seem like much, but it is a rapid fire frame scout rifle technically, and once you do get going, all you need to do is basically get this one down to 1 round in the magazine. Now its main exotic perk, the Touch of Malice, which is by its name, then the final round in the magazine deals bonus damage, but it also draws from the wielder's life force and then regenerates the ammo itself. So effectively you never really have to reload this weapon, it'll always just stay at 1 round in the magazine, and that final round in the magazine will deal 120% increased damage. But like I say, it also does decrease your health, and it will decrease your health by 7 HP per tick, but unlike what it used to do, now it doesn't actually kill you, it'll just basically leave you one shot with only a smidgen of health left. It does have some built-in health regen on that, whereby if you defeat 3 targets you will restore an amount of health. It is good, but to be fair, you don't want to just rely on that thing with the Touch of Malice. Now, before we move on into how to make this a little bit of an absolute Strand monster with this subclass setup, then we've got to talk about the Touch of Blight, which is the other exotic perk. So basically, on scoring 10 precision hits with the Touch of Malice, you'll build up stacks of charge with Blight. Then all you need to do is hold to reload and you'll effectively get like a Taken Blight, which you can launch at targets, much like the Taken captains do. Now, once this thing hits a target, then it will blind them temporarily, but it'll also give you a massive damage boost, not only for the Touch of Malice but also for other weapons of sorrow such as Fawn and Malfeasance, and effectively you're going to get a bonus 50% damage output on that target for about 2.5 seconds, which I think is getting increased up to 3.5 seconds when the final shape launches. Now also, this Blight will poison enemies and it'll deal damage over time for a short duration as well. So this thing does have some immense damage output. I mean, you're basically getting a near on 200% damage increase by just using this exotic as it is. And then if that really wasn't enough, obviously you want to get them precision hits to build up them stacks of that charge with Blight, and if you do manage to get the exotic catalyst, then that's going to grant you rapid hit, which is also going to increase the stability and reload speed. Not that you're going to be using it for reload speed, but to be fair, that bonus stability does make this thing an absolute laser beam. Obviously the Touch of Malice, absolutely insane. I'll take this absolutely everywhere. I'll meme with it in the Crucible, I'll use it for endgame, Nightfalls, anything. I'll use it in raids. It is absolutely amazing, an amazing exotic. The only real problem with it, and the only real downside, and the main reason I think that a lot of people don't use it, is because of how it just basically drains your health. Now there's a few ways to get around that. Obviously in the sandbox with Destiny, then there's tons of healing options. You've got restoration, you've got devour, you've got all that good stuff, but I think the best synergy at the minute with this thing is on the Titan, it is on the Berserker Titan, and yes, it is with the Banner of War. Now this thing is taking a slight hit with the final shape, but it's not taking a hit where it actually needs to be effective in this build with the Touch of Malice, and that is with the periodic healing that this grants to you once you get the Banner of War going. Now to activate the Banner of War, you're going to need a sword, melee, glaive or super final blow to activate it, and this will grant you 1 stack of the Banner of War. But then once you've got 1 stack going, which initially lasts for 15 seconds, you can then use effectively any other weapon to increase the stacks of Banner of War, which goes up to a 4-time stack. And at a 4-time stack it's going to restore 20 HP every second, which absolutely negates the 7 HP drain that the Touch of Malice will do. This is why, hands down, I think that the Banner of War is the best way to run the Touch of Malice at the minute, just because of the immense uptime that you can keep with the Banner of War aspect. Obviously you don't need to do much to get it going, and you definitely don't need to do much to keep it going, especially with the immense damage output that you've got from the Touch of Malice, whether that's just at a base level with that final round in the magazine and that 120% damage, or if you're using that Blight launcher on chunkier enemies and bigger health targets to get the bonus 50% going from that as well. Now in terms of where this is going to sit in the final shape, then obviously it's going to be getting a little bit of a nerf to the damage output and the damage bonuses that it offers for melee attacks, swords and super final blows, but effectively we're going to be running this with the Synthocepts anyway, and it basically works exactly the same as what the Banner of War works with at the minute, in terms of only giving you a 15% increase to melee damage, a 12.5% increase to glaive melee damage, and only a 20% increase to super damage when biotic enhancements is active. Now to be fair, there is a few other ways you can go in terms of this build, in terms of exotic setup, but I just think the all-round synergy that Synthocepts offers, even with that reduced damage output, it just gives you something a little bit extra to do. It also increases your melee lunge speed and distance, and it gives you a nice boost to weapon handling as well, which doesn't go amiss with the Touch of Malice. One of the main things that I do use Synthocepts for though is, like I said, to get that initial Banner of War going. Now if you've got any downtime or anything like that, then you're going to get the maximum out of Synthocepts, and you're going to get that huge damage increase that it offers at a base level. And at that base level, it's going to give you a 50% increase to super damage, a 165% increase to melee damage, and another 100% increased glaive melee damage output. It's going to make it super easy to get biotic enhancements going if you do use this exotic with this build. Now in terms of where I really want to go with using the Touch of Malice is to really lean in on that precision damage. Now to do that with the Strand fragments, we can use the Thread of Isolation, because by using this fragment we can make the Touch of Malice to sever targets on landing rapid precision hits. Now like I say, even with or without that catalyst, the Touch of Malice is a bit of a laser beam, and you're going to be using this to deal precision damage to targets anyway, so you might as well effectively sever targets. Now severing targets will decrease their damage output by 40%. Now that is absolutely massive. In endgame content and even in every day-to-day play, 40% reduced damage output by targets is absolutely immense, and is going to massively increase your survivability. But not only that, any target that is severed is also then going to unwind into a tangle when they're defeated. Now the synergy with this lays into the fray aspect, that whereby when destroying a tangle or casting your super, it will grant Woven Mail for you or nearby allies, and then whilst you have Woven Mail, your melee regeneration rate is also then going to be increased. That bonus melee regeneration rate is going to be absolutely vital as well, because also with the Titan, the Frenzied Blade melee does also sever targets, so you've got a little bit of a gameplay loop going there. You're going to be severing targets either from the Touch of Malice or from the increased uptime of your Frenzied Blade, and then Frenzied Blade is also going to lean in nicely into the Banner of War aspect. Now all of this technically then is going to lean into more survivability, because we're not only severing targets, but we're also going to be getting Woven Mail, which is going to give you a massive 30% damage resistance to non-precision hits from enemies, and then also from that we can then lean into just doubling up the uptime of that with the Thread of Warding, whereby when picking up an Orb of Power, that is also going to grant you Woven Mail. Now to create Orbs of Power in this build, then we're basically just going to be using the Kinetic Siphon on the helmet, because we're going to be using the Touch of Malice basically as your one and done only weapon that we're going to be using to clear up trash mobs, and also to deal out huge damage to bosses, champions and stuff like that. Now in terms of other fragments that we've got in this setup, then I've gone for the thread of continuity because this is going to allow you to just increase the duration of that sever on targets, and again it's just going to lean into making sure that you've got maximum survivability in this build. I mean, you're basically going to be a roaming tank at this point because you've got Banner of War going, you're severing everything, and you've also got Woven Mail going just for and giggles at this point. Now in terms of the rest of the strand setup we've got going on here, then I've chosen to chuck in the Threadling grenade because it's just going to help you just deal with a little bit of area of effect damage. Obviously you're going to get 3 Threadlings from this Threadling grenade, and then if you chuck in the Thread of Evolution, then that's going to give you a massive 33% damage increase to them Threadlings, and they're also going to travel a little bit further, a little bit quicker, and like I said, do a little bit more damage to enemies. Remember, you also do have the Blade Fury super ability from Titans, which will then also help you to suspend targets. You're also going to be severing them, and it deals massive damage output, even with that slightly reduced damage increase that it gives from the Synthocepts, but still it's going to give you a 20% damage boost, and 20% is definitely better than nothing. Now in terms of the rest of the setup, then I generally like to use my favourite legendary glaive, which is the Greasy Look. Now I've got it with Replenishing Aegis and Incandescent, which does absolutely work really nicely with any build this season because of the nature of the artifact, but you don't even really need to lean into it because Incandescent is just great for dealing with trash ads and just shutting down areas of enemies, and then Replenishing Aegis is going to allow you to just lean into that block ability that you should be using with glaives, and you're going to get automatically reloading of the weapon. In terms of boss damage, then obviously like I say, we are using the Touch of Malice, we are using that massively increased damage output that you can get from that, and the survivability. But just remember, obviously if you are wailing away on a boss with the Touch of Malice, it isn't the most optimal DPS, it is good for backup damage, and remember you only have like that maximum uptime of that Banner of War, which is 30 seconds, and if you've been using it and you haven't defeated an enemy, then that's going to run out, and then you're effectively going to end up being one shot. So in terms of where I've gone with, you know, my heavy weapon, at the minute I've been using the Edge Transit, but obviously anything goes really depending on what you're using, depending on what the activity is, and depending on what the modifiers are. You can go with any swords, obviously that's going to help you lean into the Banner of War aspect. Now in terms of the rest of the mods that we're using, then we've got hands-on on the helmet, which is going to allow you to get some bonus super energy on melee final blows. Obviously we've got that increased melee regeneration speed from the Into the Fray aspect, and you've got 3 charges of that as well, so you're going to be getting good chunks of super energy back on melee final blows. We've got Impact Induction, which is going to reduce your grenade cooldown on powered melee final blows, and then we've doubled up on Momentum Transfer, which is going to flip that back around, and it's going to reduce your melee cooldown on doing grenade damage. Obviously we've got that Threadling grenade to help us with that one as well. On the boots, then I've basically just gone for a weapon surge, which is going to match the heavy weapon of choice. If you really want, you can put some kinetic weapon surges on and give yourself a bonus damage output to the Touch of Malice, but because of how insane it is at the minute with this setup anyway, then I really think that's a little bit overkill, but if that's where you want to go, then that's where you want to go. And then on the class armor, we've gone for Powerful Attraction, which is going to allow you to collect any orbs of power that are nearby on casting your class ability, which we aren't really leaning into this time on a Titan build, but if you do use it, it's going to allow you to collect them orbs of power. And we've also got the Font of Restoration, which is just going to massively increase your recovery stat. Now in terms of artifacts mods, then I'm not really going to go over it due to the late point in the season, but I'll chuck a quick screenshot up of the ones that I've got going. So there we go. I just wanted to, you know, chuck a little bit of a build together and show what you can do with the Touch of Malice. Now this thing is one of my favourite exotics, and if you see me running it in any videos and stuff like that, then you know exactly why, because if you know how to use it and you know how to survive it, then this thing just knocks out some immense damage. I've been using it in the dungeons, I've been using it in the raids, and I think if you've picked it up and you've chucked it in your vault, then you need to dust it off, get it out and start using it, because this thing is absolutely insane. Just another casual build breakdown, a little bit more of a conversational style video, and you know, a bit of a casual chat as to where I'm going, what I've been thinking, and how I like to set up my characters and builds. Obviously the drip is absolutely dodges. As always, the support on the channel has been absolutely immense lately. You guys have been absolutely smashing it. I do see all the comments, I do try and reply to every single one down there that I do see, and thank you just very much for your support recently. It does mean a lot. If you've been here before, please consider subscribing. It does really help me out more than you know. You can also consider joining our fellow members to get some bonus goodies to show off in the comments. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one, which you can click right here.